Welcome to press coverage. Theo Gremminger. No time for intros tonight. We're in the middle of an FFPC main event. I'm splitting this team with Scott Barrett of Fantasy Points and Abib Agbetoba of First and 15. Abib's going to be joining us any moment now. But Scott, we were stoked to get Bijan Robinson at the 106.
Yeah, absolutely. That's my 103. So in this format, and then even if we didn't, we would have got Tyreek or Justin Jefferson. So really great place to be. And you also see historically the best win rates come from the 106 spot. I think that has to do with, you're never forced to reach. You're in a great spot to soak up ADP fallers. So I love this. Like I was telling you, if this was the 112, I'd be hitting the bottle and pretty miserable on this stream.
Yeah, 112 is a real challenge right now in FFPC drafts. It's a challenge in other formats, but FFPC especially. We're 4 picks away. We're pre-recording this, so we can kind of talk openly. I have Jahmyr Gibbs in the queue, Marvin Harrison Jr., Drake London, and I'm going to put Devon Achane. Tight end, I think one was going to be there in the third round that we would like. Occasionally you see Kincaid and Mandrews in this 207 range, but I don't think either one of those guys gives us as much of like a dangerous build as the running backs and wide receivers here. And we could get super strong at running back, or we could get balanced at wide receiver. So Achane to me is really appealing here, but Marvin Harrison Jr. and Drake London kind of speak for themselves in terms of, I think, big time potential, and also structurally makes sense for us. And neither one has the week 14 bye. So where do you lean between Harrison Jr., London, and Devon Achane here? And I see who you put in there with Cooper Kupp. I think Kupp can come there to 306. It's not a guarantee, but the other ones will be gone.
Yeah. So I have Kupp highest of any of these names in my own rankings. I know that's a little controversial, but I'm with you. I think it makes more sense to make the risk that he falls. My lean is London. I don't feel particularly amazing about it. We got the RB. I see RB values later in the draft, so I'm more comfortable punting RB2. But really, this could be your call because I don't feel amazing about any of these names.
I think London, and there goes Cooper Kupp. So we're starting to see him steam up. It comes down to London, Harrison Jr., and Devon Achane to me. Achane, the one argument for Achane is we could pretty much ignore running back until like round 10. We'd have a potential, hammer. There's going to be a wide receiver at 306, but I do think let's go London. I think Abib would like that pick as well. We'll take a wide receiver that we both think can be, if it all falls into place. Drake London's like a top 5 wide receiver this year, and structurally, again, we avoid any weird bye week stuff here. So let's take Drake London here and let's lock it in.
Yeah, I also think there's a small chance Achane falls to us. I mean, looks like we have a soft drafter at the 101.
Well, it's
Lions homer or something.
I saw it today in a 350 I'm in. I'm doing one with Dan Williamson, who hosts Stack Hunters here and also is going to be involved with Fantasy Empire. And Dan's a really, really good high stakes player. But Dan and I were also both surprised. You've seen sort of like the bold take that I'm going to take Amon-Ra St. Brown as the 101. I think that the Gibbs being a little banged up with Laporta being nothing really to worry about, but there's, I guess, we'd have to ask an injury expert here, but maybe a 10% chance Laporta misses week 1. I think it's sort of like the stars are aligning for Amon-Ra St. Brown to have his wide receiver 1 season. I agree with you. It's like in this format where Amon-Ra is getting all these 106s, let's add him to the stage here. We got Abib Agbetoba on the stage. Abib, I'm putting you on mute a little bit. We're getting a little car noise, but Abib is here. We're good to go. Abib, we got double Falcon start. Okay, so we're gonna mute Abib. We're good. Here we go.
So my question is, how much do we want to lean into this? Do we want to target Kyle Pitts? Maybe a late round Darnell Mooney?
I think we can definitely add Kirk Cousins as our QB2 here.
I thought Abib never drafts QB2s, or is he? No, he always drafts QB2s.
Abib has been known to in the past draft 3 quarterbacks, but not to pigeonhole you, Abib. I think Abib is fluid in the way that he drafts, and he comes away drafting good-looking teams each and every time he drafts. with different styles. Is that a good way of explaining your drafting style, Abib? We're gonna give Abib.
What kind of car is that, Abib? That's a glorious sunroof.
We're gonna give Abib a few minutes to get settled in, and then we're gonna get going here. We got Abib is on the way. So last year, Abib, Scott, and I, we split this team. We won it. So this is house money we're playing with tonight. So this is good stuff. Kincaid goes. Mark Andrews off the board. Travis Kelce off the board, obviously. Trey McBride off the board. So we're starting to see the tight ends dry up a little bit, but there's going to be some interesting ones at 306. Where are you at on Evan Engram, Scott?
He's fine. I talked about Abib on this when he came on my show. Is I've just had so much success punting the tight end position on FFPC or just drafting it later than most other people. I also think this is a year without like a true difference maker tight end. It's just like really deep. The upper class of the position is deep. And so I don't know. I'm more comfortable waiting. But we have Chris Olave still on the board. He might be higher than Drake London for me in my rankings, actually. So he is interesting to me. A-Chain's still there. Plenty of routes you can go.
I like Jalen Waddle at this range in the draft too. Kind of when you're stuck, go Waddle. I think
I like Neighbors.
Yeah, Neighbors I like a lot. I know Abib is into Neighbors as well. So I think we're pretty good here. I agree. And I also have 4th round exposure to Evan Engram. So I don't really necessarily want to push him into 306. It seems a little heavy to have 3 Falcons. I don't know. It seems kind of like you're trying to thread the needle with that mega stack.
With what?
If we went Kyle Pitts here.
I mean, that's interesting.
It is interesting.
So according to Ryan Heath's article, we should be expecting a 150% jump in catchable targets per game for the Falcons this year, just with Kirk Cousins and the new regime. And like, so yeah, do you just apply a 1.5x boost to Kyle Pitts' fantasy projection, to Drake London's fantasy projection? And why not? Probably an unorthodox stack. But like I said, I mean, it's in play.
Yeah, it's definitely in play. I think Olave is a no-brainer. There goes Devon Achane. Here goes Pacheco. I wouldn't be surprised if Team 5 takes Travis Etienne or Derrick Henry after their wide receiver start. You've got Christian McCaffrey and Mark Andrews' team. That team is a little bit, I think, probably going to go with a wide receiver. I usually when we see this sort of start, we see it followed up with a 3rd round wide receivers. 3rd round, we're seeing a lot of like wide receiver cleanup and running back cleanup. So we'll see. We have right now in our queue 4 guys, and we're 4 picks away. So I think we're pretty good here.
Chris Olave.
There goes Olave. Yep. So
Derek,
Waddle and Neighbors for me, I would lean into one of those guys over Pitts, unless you're thinking something else.
Waddle or Neighbors?
Waddle or Neighbors for me would be my lean.
I'd also have Devonta Smith in that tier. I also would be fine with Derrick Henry. But again, I think I'd rather punt RB2. I think there's going to be value that opens up later. But I don't know, man. Pitts is interesting. Like, this seems like we're invested heavily in this offense, taking a big jump. And so, Drake London, underdog ADP, is like a borderline round 1 pick. Like, that's priced in. But is it priced in for Kyle Pitts? Not really. Like, where was he going in FFPC drafts last year? Probably mid round 3, right?
A little bit later. We actually got him on our team that won it. He had like a little bit of a slip there. But we got him in like maybe the 6th round, 5th round. So there goes Waddle. I do think it's Neighbors though, because I think we have to assume. I don't want it to be a situation where we get a real run on wide receiver and we start like feeling pressed to push some guys up. If we get Neighbors as our wide receiver 2 here, I think we're in great shape. I'm a
little more nervous about because like I have so many late round values at the wide receiver position. But again, this is my first FFPC draft. So, I don't know where Rashee Rice goes or Deontay Johnson goes or some of my other must draft picks. Malik Neighbors is certainly one of them, but like that's on Yahoo, he's a round 6 pick. On ESPN, he's a round 5 pick.
Deontay, you're going to have to use the days of 7th round Deontay are gone. Deontay is a guy you're going to get in like the 6th round. Okay, so there goes Malik Neighbors. So now I actually think
Now it's Kyle
the pick
Pitts.
is Kyle Pitts, and I think we just lean into
Look at
this.
this.
I think we lean into the weirdo all Atlanta Falcons. We're going to hope for a lot of consolidated targets every single week, and we're going to hope for this offense being the breakout one, and we're going to go full Atlanta stack. All right, let's do it. You want to go Kyle Pitts here?
I love it, dude. Yeah.
All right, let's do it. Okay, so we just got weird, and I wonder how many. We'll have to check Fantasy Mojo and see how many full-on Atlanta Falcons stacks. I would be surprised if there's too many in this whole competition. So now we've kind of painted it here. We've got a wide receiver, we've got a tight end, and we've got a running back, and we're all in on the Atlanta Falcons offense right now. And the good thing about these guys is they all have Week 12 buys, so we don't have to worry about that like weird Week 14 buy, which is always problematic in the FFPC. And we have like our main 3 guys for the whole season. They obviously play a lot of indoor games. There could be some potential for some shootouts. That opening game against Pittsburgh is going to be very tilting, though, Scott.
Hey, you need to do me a favor, and you need to constantly remind me of bye weeks, because I totally, again, first FFPC draft. So you just need to keep reminding me of that. But Week 12 bye, and then in the Week 13 Chargers, Week 14 Vikings, Week 15 Raiders, Week 16 Giants, Week 17 Commanders. I don't know about massive shootout potential in those games, but like part of the benefit of having 2 receivers and the running back is like, let's say it's a blowout against the Giants, then Bijan's going to go off. Blowout against the Raiders, then Bijan goes. So like you have a fairly high floor, I think. I don't see them. Someone's going to have to go off, whether it's the running back or the receivers in these games, and it could be all 3.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It would be a major disappointment if 2 out of 3 of these guys didn't hit at ADP. And I think basically when you take Bijan Robinson, you basically have to treat him like the running back 1 overall. So like passing on RB2 for us was a difficult thing. We could have had a Devon Achane in the 2nd. We could have had Derrick Henry in the 3rd. But we're basically treating Bijan Robinson like he's going to be a 25-point per game guy. He could be a Todd Gurley in this offense, peak Todd Gurley. And then getting Drake London and Pitts, I mean, it's got to happen. It's got to happen for one of them to smash. And there, like with Kyle Pitts, we're going to get a guy who we think will be top 3 in tight end targets overall. Like, with all respect to Darnell Mooney, the target ceiling for him in this offense is not really that high. In terms of all wide receiver 2s, you wouldn't bet on Darnell Mooney having like an incredible amount of targets. So I think Pitts is going to be the number 2 target in the offense. And Bijan Robinson also could take off as a pass catcher out of the backfield. There's been a lot of talk of, him being utilized like Christian McCaffrey. And I think that's sort of the plan. So we're all in. We're all in on this one. We see
one of the great
Smith
things too is like, what if Kirk Cousins isn't all the way back from his Achilles? We could see Michael Penix, right? So, and I think the floor is pretty high with this team as well.
So we get into this weird part of the draft. Where are you at on Brandon Ayuk these days?
I think he's a good value here, just because I think it's most likely he stays in San Francisco. And like before people really started to get worried about a potential trade, Ayuk was going well ahead of Debo. I had it the opposite way even back then, not factoring in the trade. But still, I mean, look at what he did last year as a historically great marks and yards per route run. He's one of the best separators in the NFL. So I agree right now. I think he stands out the most to me. Maybe Evan Ingram, just because, again, not too much popping to me at value here.
Yeah, to me, like I put Diggs in the queue, but I have 5th round Diggs exposure. He's sort of a wild card in these drafts where he bounces around. I feel a lot stronger about drafting him when we get to the 5th round. With Evan Ingram, he's been a top 5 tight end for back-to-back seasons, tight end 2 last year.
Led the team in targets, or the position in targets last year. I think it was top 6 overall.
I see you put in
huge
Rashee
in tight
Rice.
end premium. Like Sam Laporta, it was more of a touchdown guy than a tight end premium guy to me, but Evan Ingram, ultimate tight end premium guy.
DK Metcalf seems like a purgatory pick here, but I don't think he's awful in this range. I don't like I don't see DK breaking fantasy this year, but I do think he's going to have spike weeks, and having him as a wide receiver 2 as
So
opposed
we
to
might be in trouble here just because I can in good faith take Stephon Diggs here when Tank Dell goes around later, and I like him more personally. What about Josh Allen?
I'm okay. So
We're in
OTC.
trouble here, Abib.
Abib, we're not in trouble. We're having a little bit of indecision. So guys in the queue that I consider: Rashee Rice, DK Metcalf. We could push in a quarterback if we wanted to go Josh Allen. Is there anybody else standing out to you here, Abib?
I think with this type of build, I'd probably avoid going quarterback this early. I just think we may have a couple of guys, including Josh Allen, who may fall to us. So I go wide receiver here. Wide receiver is going to fall off the board. I like DK Metcalf there.
Okay, so I think I like DK as well, and I'll think there's a 10%, 15% chance Rashee Rice comes to us at the 506, and if not, Diggs will be there. I agree with you. I'm gonna take DK, guys, and I like DK as a wide receiver too. I think, again, I told Scott I think he's a little bit of a purgatory value, but he's not going to hurt us. The offense with Ryan Grubb, I know, Scott, you talked about that when you came on press coverage about how we're excited about that offense. Abib, I've heard you talk about that offense as well.
Well, what I also said was that I thought Kenneth Walker could be an every down bell cow back this year, which was a hot take at the time, but you've just seen nothing but positive comments from the coaching staff backing that up. And let's not forget, Grubb is awesome, but it's the head coach who just keeps saying he wants to pound the rock. He wants to establish the run. So he's another name, unless he just went off the board here, but he's another name I'd add to the queue.
So quickly, just to give a little intro, Abib Agbetoba, one of the best drafters in the country. Abib split a team with Scott and I last year. We won an FFPC main event. So this is house money, fellas. We're out here trying to repeat it. But we got away. It got away from us in the money weeks. Our overall finish at the end was disappointing because we had a little bit of momentum. This year, with this Atlanta stack, Abib, we're very unique, and this team could be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm excited. I will say I'm not a Kyle Pitts.
I know you're not. That's why we shoved him in there before you got there. I know. I know that Evan Engram would have probably been a guy you would have maybe preferred in that range, Abib.
Yeah, that, or I would have. I think we're kind of getting a little bit of clarity with the Houston situation, where in the third round, as much as I like Nico and Dell, it could be kind of a week to week proposition. So to me, the rounds 3 and even rounds 4 I'm looking for wide receivers that, again, could potentially end up top 12, top 5 potentially. That's the type of upside I'm looking for. So I was fine passing on him. Debo, I know that's a kind of a questionable situation with Ayuk. You guys may be thinking, I guess, or assuming that Ayuk stays. I probably would have gone Debo there, but again, if this is the year, this is the year. So I don't mind the Atlanta stack.
We're consolidated. We're betting on consolidation here. We're betting on a big breakout. George Kittle goes off the board, guys. I had him in the queue as an interesting one. Abib, if we do get a Brandon Ayuk move, Kittle's going to seem cheap here at the end of the 4th. I think he'd steam up.
Absolutely. And they just took Kenneth Walker, so it's kind of.
I had him in the queue as well. Q's going to get murdered. I'm hoping that this is going to be a Rashee Rice. I think Stephon Diggs in the 5th.
Diggs is gone.
Oh, he's gone. Diggs is gone. Excuse me. Yeah. Okay, so we've got Rashee, Josh Allen, Tank Dell, George Pickens, and somebody snuck in Jake Ferguson.
So yeah, in these FFPCs, both the main event and the Fantasy Pros, wide receivers, just like in most formats these days, are really kind of getting pushed up. And you can take the con argument, or you can take you can zig with another zag and try to load up on running backs. But I think when you do that, you realize that, oh wow, you get to round 7 and 8, you realize like how many more running backs there are left. So I'm fine paying the tax. I'm fine, paying up, and I still think that there are wide receivers in this 5th round, 6th round range that can still outpace and outscore points per game in total some of the RBs that go a little bit later. So I'm going to be pushing for a wide receiver here as well.
I actually like George Pickens here a lot based on just the way I think wide receivers are going to steam between 506 and the middle of the 6th round when we pick again. Rashee Rice, I think, guys, was a guy we're all into in this range. We get a little discount with something that hasn't happened, with still the suspension, people thinking that might happen. But I think he could be a guy that kind of beats his ADP by 2 rounds if we take him here. Pickens is a little bit more of a wild card, but hey, guys, week 1, we get that Atlanta Pickens, game. That would be a little bit fun. Tank Dell, Godwin, I don't feel as strongly about really, really smashing. I love Tank Dell, but I'd be a little more comfortable a few picks later. And Godwin, I think there's a chance we get him in the 6th. We're seeing him in the late 5th a lot more these days, but where are you at, guys, on this? Rice and Pickens, are you guys good with those as the top 2 right now?
I'm not.
Go ahead. So I'm not on Pickens. I do need to. I feel like you threw me some shade on Jake Ferguson. The guy,
I threw a little shade.
Yeah. So we haven't seen his breakout yet. He wasn't a starter, a full-time player until like week 8 last year. But from that point on, if you count the postseason as well, he ranked like top 20 among all receivers and tight end premium fantasy points per game, well above DK Metcalf, well above Devontae Adams. He's potentially the number 2 receiver on a team that could lead the league in pass attempts this year. So I think I like him more than a lot of these. So Rashee Rice, obvious pick, but after that, I was going to cape up for Jake Ferguson.
Jake Ferguson, the best argument for Jake Ferguson is he was good last year, and he's in his 3rd year in the league now, and he should be the number 2 target earner on Dallas. I think the wild card is their running back situation in Dallas. Instead of trying to figure it out, just ignore it and assume that CeeDee Lamb's going to get 180 targets again, and Jake Ferguson gets some targets. I just think of Jake Ferguson as a guy. He's like, I like drafting super talented guys. I think he's sort of a little bit of a compiler. But guys, Rashee Rice here, let's slam it. Abib, any reason not to take Rashee Rice, or you want to take this one?
Yeah, just take a little time. We're definitely gonna go Rice here, just because his ADP has been getting steamed up, but just so we can talk. I need to catch up.
So yeah, let's have Abib. Abib, you talk about your Rashee Rice enthusiasm, and then we'll put it in.
Yeah. Well, I think when the season started, I was drafting Rashee Rice in the 2nd, 3rd round. So that's how high I was. And then with all the news and everything, and just kind of seeing his ADP plummet, I just sort of kind of backed off. And then when he was going into double-digit rounds, I was kind of, I was all in. So it's been kind of hard for me to just take him, where he's going now. That being said, if he's going to produce as a high-end wide receiver too, it doesn't matter where that you're taking him in the 5th round versus the later rounds. But I did want to just throw a little positive shade and light towards Chris Godwin. I actually like Chris Godwin quite a bit this year. I know everybody's aware of the slot rate, but I just want us to also remember that we were drafting Chris Godwin ahead of Mike Evans last year. So who knows what's going to happen, but I still think we're getting him at a discount. And this middle round of the 6th round now, at the current ADP, over like the last week or so, is very unique because those guys, the back end wide receivers to me, the Deontay Johnsons and the Calvin Ridleys, a lot of times they don't even make it back to this point. So that's why I was so aggressive, or wanted to be aggressive about taking a wide receiver here. Because I love Kamara in the 5th round, even at the older age, just assuming the receptions that he's going to get, and they really kind of need him in this offense. But there's going to be a lot of running backs there that I think we're going to have our pick to choose from. So I think going wide receiver here gives us some flexibility with the build.
Well, shout out to my guy, Cody Carpentier. He was of Roster Watch, formerly player profiler. He was at Tampa Bay Bucks camp, and he would take Godwin straight up over Mike Evans. That's his big take on watching the offense. And sort of Godwin is fully healthy back in the slot. And that's a great point. It's
Cooper Kupp slot roll. That's what we're hearing.
That's right.
Cooper Kupp is great, obviously, but that's also one of the most valuable roles in all of fantasy. Heavy screen usage. He's going to be in the slot. He's going to be the motion man. So I'm bummed. Jake Ferguson off the board, Josh Allen off the board. Those are 2 guys I put on the queue that you guys didn't like.
We love Josh Allen. I love Josh Allen. I will say that you get some of these weird drafts where the 7th round gives you exposure to guys like CJ Stroud, guys like Anthony Richardson sometimes fall into the 7th round these days. I don't know about with this board. I would anticipate that Lamar Jackson goes quite soon. And then as soon as he goes, who knows when the next QB will go. But we like Jaden Daniels. We're going to get a Kirk Cousins with this team for better or for worse. So we're already a 2 QB build. There goes a couple more guys from our queue. Tank Dell goes, I've got George Pickens in the queue. Godwin is still there. Pickens just goes. And Njoku and Bowers I added in. I saw one of you guys added in Njoku. I like Brock Bowers as well in this sort of the end of the really exciting tight end range, unless you want to consider Pat Freiermuth a value a little bit later.
I'm going to fight back. I think, if we're taking Pitts in the third, ahead of Evan Ingram, or just taking him in the middle of the third, this is a bet that he's going to hit, and I just don't want to I don't want to deal with some of the mid-tier tight ends. I'm a Jake Ferguson fan, and I think, my preference would have been to take a wide receiver in round 3 and then, take either Ferguson in round 4 or 5. But again, this could be the year. I like the Atlanta stack. I will say, I don't think we need to take Kirk Cousins. And we have a good complement or a good comparison in comp in the Rams. We saw Puka and Kupp and Kyron all sort of, produce and, be every week starters, while Stafford was rarely a startable quarterback, partly because he's not mobile, but also because Kyron was taking quite a bit of touchdowns, on the ground. So if we're using that as a comp, I would rather go with a higher upside quarterback if we do go second quarterback, not that it's needed.
Let me just chime in here. So I don't think the Kyle Pitts pick has any bearing on David Njoku potentially taking him here, because the 2 flex tight end premium format last year, Jamar Chase ranked 15th among all receivers in tight end premium fantasy points per game. David Njoku ranked 18th. And so he could just be outscoring multiple of the wide receivers we've already drafted, and potentially all of them going behind. I know things are different with Jerry Jeudy. I did just want to make that case. Although, like I said, I love I love Chris Godwin. I love Deontay Johnson. I love Calvin Ridley.
I've taken Njoku in the 5th round. I'm very bullish on him this year. I think Njoku, we saw there. It's hard to put that away, what he did in the second half of the season. And I don't
He's
buy
also
into
the end of a tier, I think, or maybe Bowers.
But I will say Xavier Worthy just went. So I think I think I'm with Abib. I think it's a wide receiver here. Abib, are you pounding the table for wideout still?
Yeah, because I know you guys don't like some of these later running backs, but I'm absolutely in on Deontay. I'd be okay.
Deontay and Godwin to me are a very similar tier. So I'll let you two guys talk it out here. I'm okay with drafting either. I've drafted probably a little bit more.
So Godwin's gone. So it's Deontay or
it's Deontay then.
I guess
Let's
it's
take
just
Deontay Johnson, guys.
Wait. I'm okay with Njoku here too as well. If you guys want to hash that out. So however, I prefer Deontay, but I'm okay with Njoku. He is the last of that tier for me as well.
Okay, so Scott, Deontay Johnson. I think I lean at Deontay, but we'll defer.
Let's take Deontay then. That's all I needed to hear. I just think it was worth a conversation.
Okay. And so now just to recap for anybody listening on a podcast, we started out with Bijan Robinson. We took Drake London in the 2nd round and Kyle Pitts in the 3rd, full on Atlanta stack. DK Metcalf in the 4th round, Rashee Rice in the 5th, Deontay Johnson in the 6th. So in terms of team structure, we are at 1 running back, 1 tight end, and 4 wide receivers. This is an FFPC main event. So you're starting 2 wide receivers, a tight end, 2 flexes, 2 running backs, and a quarterback. So a lot of flexibility with what you can do with the tight end premium scoring. How are you feeling about this build so far, Abib?
Love it. I really do. Even with the Pitts pick. And I think this, we had kind of talked about this ahead of time as far as getting starting with the hero RB build with Bijan. I know, Scott, you've been a huge proponent of taking running backs early. Theo, I think you
just those 3.
Oh, yeah, just those 3. And Theo, I know you fluctuate, and you probably do a better job of diversifying than most. But I love this, and I love that we got a high end tight end or one of the higher end tight ends. So we can do a lot with this. I don't feel a need to necessarily have to hammer running backs the rest of the way either, just given the state of the NFL and multiple RBBCs and ambiguous situations. So, depending on what comes back to us, I think there's still a lot of flexibility. We can go quarterback. We can, there's a wide receiver there that we like, or obviously if we see our RB2, we have a lot of flexibility coming back here in the 7th.
Uncorrelated Anthony Richardson at the 706 is something that I think is really enticing for me. I love that Ramondre Stevenson's in our queue. Occasionally we see Jonathan Brooks go a little later than this, but he's a hammer pick. The one pushback I would say is, I know we want this Carolina offense to take a step forward, but we would have double exposure to 2 Carolina Panthers in the money weeks potentially if we take Jonathan Brooks as our RB2.
Let me just say, this is how I use the queue. Is it just like, it's either the next guy's up, which we have, and then it's just like 2 guys I don't ever want us to lose track of, and so to me, that's Brooks for sure. I'm not worried about having 2 Panthers. I did the Play Caller podcast with you. Like, I think they take a significant step forward, but specifically those 2 have league winning potential, even if the offense sucks, just based on Canales' track record with X wide receivers and with his bell cow running backs. But yeah, so I think, wait, is Anthony Richardson still on the board?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Anthony Richardson is still on the board, and Brock Bowers is still on the board, which is a little odd to see him this late. I
wanted to say too, after that Calvin Ridley pick, wide receiver just got so gross.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
So great job. Yeah. Forcing wide receivers before that. That was smart.
Yeah. And that's one thing that I've seen. Deontay, was making it back to the back end of the 6th, 7th round, late 7th round about a month ago. Same thing with Ridley. And just the last couple of weeks, it's been really tough. So definitely making it a priority to get these wide receivers early.
We have the chance to get the 2 greatest tight end prospects of all time on the same roster. But it's also hard to pass up, as much as we love Jaden Daniels, as much as there's value on Burrow and Kyler. It is hard to pass up the guy who just had averaged the most fantasy points per 4 quarters of all time, as well as one of the best fantasy point per dropback seasons ever. I know it was a small sample, but league wrecking potential from the quarterback there.
I love Anthony Richardson. You don't have to twist my arm on that. I do think if Brock Bowers going after Pat Freiermuth, shout out to Remy LeBeau.
Wow.
I'm not so sure about that one, guys. I know there's a couple of high stakes people that do content as well who are really pounding the table for Pat Freiermuth. So a big hat tip for one of those guys. Okay, Zamir White also is not a guy that we had in our queue. Played a little late into the game yesterday. That was an interesting outcome for Zamir White. He looked good, but I'm
hearing I'm not a Zamir White guy, but I'm hearing they love him. So I don't know how much stock you put into that. They played Josh Jacobs. What was it? The first preseason game into the 3rd quarter, and he fell 4 rounds by ADP. But I guess it comes down here to Bowers and Richardson. So who has the strongest lean on that? Okay,
so we're 2 picks away. We really can't miss here. Is there another player you'd like to throw into the conversation, Abib, between those 2? There goes Bowers. The dream is dead.
All right, so Richardson, easy. They're making it easy on us.
Abib, you're good with this one?
Yeah, I'm good with this. I just think, before we click, just who are you anticipating in the 8th round? Who are you going to be okay with at some of the skill position? If you really are into Jonathan Brooks, I don't necessarily know that he makes it back to us, but
oh no,
yeah, so, you might lose Brooks on this one, Scott. And I will say,
and I'm fine with a lot of quarterbacks. So
yeah, and I'll say Stroud's still on the board, Kyler Murray's still on the board, Jaden Daniels still on the board, and obviously the guys like Burrow are going to fall into the 10th round these days. So it comes down to it. If we want Jonathan Brooks, we take him right now. If we want Anthony Richardson, we take him right now. So I'm good with either. Let's defer to you on this one, Scott. Who could you live without? 10 seconds.
I can't live without Jonathan Brooks.
Take him.
Let's take him. It's done. Jonathan Brooks is in.
Yeah.
Do we need to stack him with Hubbard?
I like to. Hubbard's a little bit banged up these days, but Hubbard you get really late, and you're going to get usable weeks. But I think that whether or not we take Hubbard comes down to how we feel at our RB2 spot. we don't need to think about this until like round 12.
Tajay Spears stands out to me.
I like Tajay a lot.
If you need a valuable innings eater, maybe Javonte. Chase Brown is kind of like the same bet as Spears. He's just going a lot earlier on FFPC than I expected. Yeah. I think Gus Edwards is a cheap innings eater. J.K. Dobbins I like a lot at cost. I also like Nick Chubb a little bit in this format, but I have another must draft pick like Brooks, who's going to be dead weight in the early portion of the season. So I don't know that it makes sense to take.
So I'll say this: we talked about TJ Hawkinson as a guy that's interesting. We looked at his, and a big shout out to Darren Armani, who runs Fantasy Mojo. If you want to have the most accurate FFPC data, it's probably Abib's home screen these days, fantasymojo.com. I know it is for me, but TJ Hawkinson routinely goes in the middle of round 9, and the earliest we've seen him go over the last few days in FFPC main events is right about where we would be picking 807. I will push back though. I think the Jonathan Brooks pick eliminates us taking TJ in the 8th. TJ in the 9th, I would make that pick, but I think when we're looking at the 8th, it's somebody we want to be able to use early on in case the Hawkinson injury lingers. Abib, do you agree with that, or do you feel strong enough about this team that you would be okay having sort of two dead picks?
Yeah, I think looking at who's behind us. So I doubt anybody takes TJ Hawkinson before it gets back to us. But looking at picks or teams 1 through 5, 5 already has 2 tight ends, 4 has Mark Andrews, 3 has Kittle, 2 has Kincaid, 1 may be a toss up with the Pat Fryer muse. But I would say, we can get past 1. There's a decent chance, I think a really good chance that TJ Hawkinson makes it back to us in the 9th. It just depends on who's here in the 8th. So if there's somebody that's really like just, okay, this guy can really be a force for our team, then, maybe pass on Hawkinson. If we're kind of iffy on it, maybe we take him there. In the 9th, I'm going to be pushing. I'm going to be with, on Team Scott here as far as making sure we get TJ Hawkinson. But I think we can take the gamble with this type of team.
Yeah, I'm a gambler too. Like I have my must draft guys, but if I think there's a good chance they make it to me in round, so I won't cape up for him in round 8. But if he gets to round 9, it's going to be an issue.
No, I think round 9 he's a great pick. Round 8 here, I'll throw out. We see Javonte go off the board. Do we have a recent update today on Jaylen Warren's hamstring? I didn't see anything. We're recording this again on Sunday evening, but I think there's a little bit of questions with that, whether the severity of it, whether it's 2 weeks or whether it's nothing or whether it's more than that. But he's interesting to me in the 8th round. Chase Brown's really interesting to me in the 8th round because we're starting to see Joe Burrow fall into the 10th a lot. I'm not a huge Joe Burrow guy, but 10th round Joe Burrow, you can't really miss with that. And Chase Brown gives us like a weird correlation with Joe Burrow where we're picking.
Well, my only thing with that is I like him exactly the same as Tajay Spears, who goes around later. I think it's the same bet, except I have more faith in Spears as a talent than I do Brown. And so then maybe it makes sense to grab a Hawk here. But there's also Raheem Mostert, he was a top 3 overall fantasy asset before he suffered his injury. Joe Burrow, just to piggyback on that, over his last 25 full healthy games, he averages like 25 fantasy points per game. Only Josh Allen ranks ahead. So I agree he's a good value, but me, I'm a Jaden Daniels guy. I think we're going to get a good pick no matter what, but and I'm really open to what you guys are thinking.
Well, I have Rome Odunze in there just as a hammer to add to our wide receiver room. I think that in the 8th round, he makes sense. Chase Brown stands out to me. And then Abib, I'll defer to you. Is there anybody else you want to throw into this? We're 5 picks out.
No, but just want to mention, especially in the main event where people tend to really not be as wild with taking a second QB early on in drafts. Team 12 did not take a QB. So if we load our QB, or one thing that we want to pay attention to is, how many QBs are off the board? Because the whole Jaden Daniels game, or if you don't mind that Prescott, is that 12th or the 11th QB or the 12th QB waiting that long, sometimes is an advantage. That's when we kind of see the Joe Burrow fall to the 10th or the Jaden Daniels fall to the 10th, is that everybody's already taken their QBs, and so we can just sort of kind of sit and wait, especially in a high stakes type tournament and atmosphere where people are going to probably be a little bit hesitant to just, try and take that QB too early on.
Yeah, you're so right. There's always that lull, and I think we'll see it here.
Dunze just goes off the board.
Bummer.
Tyjae Spears and Chase Brown make some sense with this build. They're a really nice bridge to Jonathan Brooks. And there's also potential that when we get back Brooks, Spears or Brown have really overtaken this backfield, at least in terms of the pass catching role. For whatever you want to think about Pollard, he did show some regression last year. Does he get it all back this year? I've drafted him a few times, but I think I'm a little more intrigued with Spears. There goes Chase Brown.
But we don't have an RB2 through the first 6 weeks of the season. Yeah, why not Mostert?
Do you guys want to take Mostert?
Yeah, let's do it. Good ADP value.
Okay, and I also like when we take Mostert to consider taking Jalen Wright in like round 11, if he's there. I just throwing that out there. Okay, so let's take Mostert. We get him to start the season. A really great bridge to Jonathan Brooks.
And I like that idea, Theo. That's one of the few handcuff situations that just makes a lot of sense. He's looked good in the preseason. He seems to slot it well in that offense. We know that they're not going to pound A-Chain into the ground. Jeff Wilson just looks absolutely toast. Looked toast last year. So I think he's a good bet to be that RB3 and just kind of shoring up the 1A or 1B or whatever you want to call it in that Miami backfield. I think is a good move, good bet to have.
Breaking news as of 2 minutes ago, Jaylen Warren to miss multiple weeks, week 1 status up in the air per Tom Pelissero.
There you go.
I really hope Jaylen Warren, you know what else that means, guys? That means we're going to see some Cordero Patterson.
We saw it in the preseason.
I know we're going to see even
before
more
the injury.
Oh God, we're going to see more of it.
Yeah, before the Jaylen Warren injury, we saw Cordell Patterson with the first team. So I mean, I will never ever trust him. I know what he did in Tennessee. I need to see it a full year before I hop back onto the Arthur Smith.
Please.
I will never.
He's earned zero goodwill.
Yeah,
he's a madman. He's a madman.
But honestly, where you're drafting Jaylen Warren these days, or where you were drafting him, I don't necessarily know that him missing the first couple of weeks really moves the needle. I've not been a Jaylen Warren guy, and not really much of a Najee Harris guy either. But I wouldn't necessarily change my stance. I mean, maybe now, if anything else, if I start seeing him fall in the 9th and 10th, maybe I'll grab that first share, a couple shares here or there.
So we've got TJ Hawkinson still on the board. We feel less of a push to draft a RB2 because we just did with Raheem Mostert. We're sort of wide open here, guys. 906. If you want Kyler Murray, this is when you take him. And Jaden Daniels obviously is very appealing.
So this is going to be big for us, because if 3 quarterbacks go off the board, we're going to have to make a decision. Do we take Jaden Daniels, or do we pass him up and let Team 12 get him, and then we just go late round with either Caleb Williams or dealer's choice as far as some of the QBs 12 rounds and later. And then he just took that hurt us. The Jordan Love pick there. I think he timed out.
Yeah, the team that drafted F1, you're all obviously looking at them as a Jaden Daniels team. Mm-hmm. Anytime I see an F1, especially with like the wide receiver 2 and wide receiver 3 situation being kind of weird and in flux, I think that might be the Jaden Daniels drafter.
Yeah.
So you might see a little bit of Kyler Murray here at this team 1. I don't know if they know what they're going to do here. Abib.
Yeah, they may. I mean, with Jordan Love going, to the Patrick Mahomes team, we may not get one of those top, 11 guys. In which case, then TJ Hawkinson becomes an easy pick, and we just sort of kind of wait it out.
Okay, so let's say Hawkinson or quarterback is probably our preferred one, and then just to reiterate, anybody listening on the podcast for this. Bijan Robinson in the first, Drake London in the second, Kyle Pitts in the third, DK Metcalf in the fourth, Rashee Rice in the fifth, Deontay Johnson in the 6th round. And then we took Jonathan Brooks and Raheem Mostert back-to-back running backs in round 7 and round 8. Raheem Mostert bridge to Jonathan Brooks. So we get, high-end running back production. I like this team so far. This is a really good balance.
Same.
Yeah,
Cortland Sutton there. Abib.
A little high. I guess he's the team, he's their number one. I don't know. I just, he doesn't excite me.
No, I mean, but it seems a couple picks too early for him. It's the Bo Nix, Cortland Sutton vibes are strong, but how much is that worth kind of deal? And the guy had all those touchdown catches last year. You got to think that there's going to be a little bit of regression in the touchdown scoring. Jameson goes, okay, so this is turning out pretty well for us, guys.
Are there any pros you recognize, Abib?
I have not looked at the names.
There's a couple badges, but it's not a fully badged out room. This is not a lot of badges.
I don't know if you did that on purpose, but
luck of the draw.
Yeah.
Well done.
Hey, but some of us, quote unquote, badges are a little overly aggressive, and we assist and help out those who are not as aggressive or who are maybe a little bit newer to the high stakes game. So you know where I feel about Hawkinson, but I feel exactly the same way on Jaden Daniels. So I don't know if there's any concern there, or do we still feel good about that lull because just about everyone doesn't have a quarterback? Well, the issue is Jordan Love went to the Patrick Mahomes team, so that killed us. So we may not even, we may be looking at making a decision between Dak Prescott or just waiting, and drafting like a Caleb or someone else a little bit later.
So I'm totally comfortable with two guys getting zeros in the early portion of the week. Fuck.
Jaden Daniels is gone.
All right.
Okay.
That's fine. So as long as Hawk doesn't go here.
We're TJ Hawkinson at this pick. And if TJ Hawkinson is gone, okay, I was going to say Tajay would so let's take Hawkinson. We establish a little bit more of an edge here at tight end with Hawkinson. Now we have potentially another top 5 tight end when he comes back, if he repeats what he did last year. And even if he regresses, he's going to be solid.
I also have to remind you guys of my philosophical strategy in FFPC. Maybe we'll be butting heads later, but I love loading up on tight ends late in the draft because many times you get your answer immediately in week 1, but it's also, let's not underestimate the floor that tight ends provide in this format where you can just slide them into the flex. I love Tyler Conklin this year. Last year I was drafting a ton of Zach Ertz plus Trey McBride. I think you can do that this year with Zach Ertz plus Ben Sinnott. And so TJ Hawkinson plus Tyler Conklin plus the Green Bay tight end Luke Musgrave, there's a really good chance he outscores 5 of the tight ends who just went. That combination.
So I agree. 100% agree.
Yeah, I'm with you as well. I mean, I think right now we're really strong at the tight end spot, but it doesn't deter us from taking another one in the next 10 rounds. I think it's a 3 tight end build though. I think taking these 2 guys takes the pressure off from having to load up on the 4th one. Unless, Scott, you love a value a little bit late. Coming up here in the 10th round, guys, Dak is interesting. Who else really kind of stands out to you guys?
I'm adding guys to the queue, but I'm not paying too much attention to ADP. Just guys I know I typically draft a ton of.
What are your thoughts on? What are you guys' thoughts on Dak? Because obviously he just, we know, he's a top 3, top 5, score or points per game scorer last year. Started off slow, but then really destroyed the field thereafter with CD. And they really haven't done much at the running back position. But there just seems to be, maybe it's the holdout, maybe it's them not drafting a running back. There just seems to be this sort of kind of negative feeling and, negative aura that surrounds, anyone who's not CeeDee Lamb with the Dallas Cowboys. But why are we so low? And this includes myself on Dak Prescott. He's never someone I'm like, oh, let's get him on a team. He was going ahead of Jaden Daniels at one point, and I think ahead of Jordan Love. And so now we've seen him kind of replace that last, or the 11th quarterback, last quarterback in that tier. What are you guys' thoughts on Dak Prescott?
I think he's a little bit polarizing. I know Nelson Sousa of FTN, who I draft with, and Abib, I know you know as well. Very successful high stakes guy. He's in on Dak. I had Rich Haribar on press coverage. He's just on a sort of a Dak regresses. He's so good last year. It's sort of a regression model. And then my take with Dak is I like drafting him a lot when I get CeeDee Lamb or if I have a Ferguson. I don't necessarily like having uncorrelated Dak. I think you lose a little bit of an edge there. I'd be of the opinion that in the 10th round here, we might as well just keep pushing quarterback a little bit more. If this team at team 1 passes on QB, then I think our pick in the 10th round is Jalen Wright, and we take him a little bit early and we ensure ourselves that Miami running back position.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just can't get too excited about the RB3 on the Dolphins. Like even Mostert's a stretch, but I really like Dak Prescott. After the team's bye, you really saw them just, okay, the run game is not working. Let's lean into the pass. Best pass rate over expectation in the league. Dak over that span ranked behind only Josh Allen in fantasy points per game. That's just his ceiling. So he could regress. That's second best quarterback, and you regress, you could still be well worth that cost. And he's always been one of the safest picks ever. Like, has he ever not finished top 12 in total scoring at the position? Yeah. If you want to correlate, I don't really care too much about correlating beyond, I guess, the Falcon stack that we had. But you could take a chance on Brandon Cooks. You know, CeeDee Lamb hasn't been there all offseason, so that's given them a chance to build a rapport. It wouldn't shock me if the offense is even better this year, even more pass heavy and leads the league in pass attempts. But that's just my personal preference.
I kind of see it in two ways. And one, I mean, in the 10th round, I think we've been gifted, Dak in the 10th, one of these sort of kind of, what do you call it, the second, third tier quarterbacks. Like I don't want to say the cliff drops off, but there's a tier below. Like the next quarterbacks may not go until the 12th, 13th round. So,
yeah, if we pass on bad Dak here, then we're a 2 quarterback build and we're playing matchups.
Yeah,
so I think Dak is probably Dak is the logical pick here, guys. I think we just do it. The team
unless there's a chance,
if we don't.
Unless you think there's like a 90% chance Dak or Caleb falls to us.
Caleb will fall.
Caleb will fall.
But then honestly, with Dak, with Dak, I do worry about not necessarily regression, but I just don't like offenses that are so one-dimensional, and especially now that they have a full year of tape. But again, in the 10th round, I don't think it is, without a question, I would be pushing the button right here on Dak.
Yeah,
but I would definitely be looking at another quarterback later on.
I think we take Dak Prescott here.
Yeah,
and I think we just lock it in. And like you said, guys, we'll still draft a QB2 with this team. And it could be a Caleb Williams, but Caleb and Dak do have the same bye. I'll just throw that out there, but it's week 7, so I wouldn't worry about it. Let's take Dak Prescott here in the 10th round. I think we all love the value here. Yeah. Are we good with this pick?
Yes. And can I get on my soapbox about the multiple quarterback drafting?
Yes, I'd like you to talk to the naked QB haters out there.
Yes. So I think we merged best ball minds and redraft minds. So we're like, at the end of the year, we look at the numbers and we're like, well, that guy's, QB 12, this guy was QB 11, and they weren't that far apart. But in reality, in redraft, we had to start these guys. And so even someone like a Joe Burrow with the history of his performance going against, AFC North teams, when he plays Pittsburgh, when he plays Cleveland, I personally will not start Joe Burrow on those weeks because I know that it's going to be tough division until I see a little bit of a change or there's some, or maybe, the other team has some injuries and things like that. But because to me, quarterbacks are the easiest to predict on a week-to-week basis. Is it going to be a shootout? Is the Vegas points total high? Are they going up against a pass, funnel defense? Is it a team that allows a lot of QB rushing, like the Lions? Whatever, if you're a rushing QB and you play the Lions, like you're likely going off. Like, you don't want to sit. I mean, you never sit Josh Allen and Lamar, but those guys tend to dominate the Lions. Any rushing QB is going to die. So I like having, unless I have like a Jalen Hurts or Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen, I like having flexibility at the QB because it scores the most positions. Also, we handcuff every other position. We draft, multiple wide receiver 5, 6s, and 7s. And these guys are likely never going to start. A lot of them get cut. But those second quarterbacks are valuable somebody gets hurt. We play the matchups, bye weeks, going into the tournament. You never know what's going to happen. You always want to have 2 quarterbacks. So that's my soapbox for drafting more than one quarterback.
Yeah, and I will say this, when you get into a competitive FFPC or one of the other high stakes formats and you go naked at QB and you happen to need a quarterback, people will box you out and you will have to use considerable amount of fab to get a guy that might not even put up meaningful numbers. So I think there's a good argument with it. I still, when I get a great value on a Josh Allen or something like that and they fall to me in round 5, then I've gone naked on a couple of builds, but generally I've been a 2 QB guy. I definitely Abib has kind of pounded that in my head over the years. Not necessarily the 3 QBs Abib ever, but it's worked out for you on some really, really profitable teams. So can't ignore that one. Luke Musgrave goes off the board. My Jalen Wright dream is dead. So guys, I hope our old man running back 2 stays healthy long enough to get us to Jonathan Brooks. I'll throw out, and because I love this team and because we are so invested in the offense, I do think handcuffing Bijan with Tyler Algier makes sense. And I'll throw it out there, in a 17-game season, this is not saying Bijan's going to be lost for the year, but if he was lost for 3 weeks, Tyler Algier would be a guy that we would rank inside of the top 15 running backs for that particular week, and we still have correlation to this offense. I think he makes me feel good about this build. And the 11th and 12th round is right about when you see Tyler Algier. It wouldn't be like we're reaching in order to handcuff. This would just be a decent pick at this range of the draft.
So I can't hate on that. I think that's a great call. The only thing I'll say is, like, I just don't like handcuffs because you're holding dead weight throughout the waivers. And there's like players with upside and points where you kind of know your answer right away. Like Josh Palmer, I think, could be this year's Nico Collins. Caleb Williams, who's in the queue, maybe it's not Dak. Maybe Caleb with those wide receivers is just CJ Stroud 2.0. Gus Edwards, J.K. Dobbins, I think you get your answer right away in week 1, and that's potential points as we wait for Jonathan Brooks to hopefully have that upside. If you want more upside, you can go with Nick Chubb, who's, again, in that Hawkinson Brooks tier. So maybe it doesn't work with our team, but he's in the queue. So those are like Trey Benson I love, but it's, when does that happen? It's, you get lucky with an injury, which you can't predict, or, does he ever, get the lion's share of the touches? I don't know.
So I'll say that all 3 of these picks would be sort of values at ADP to get Palmer in the 11th, to get Tyler Algier in the 11th, and then we saw Caleb go off the board. So that one's done. I think for me, I would lean Algier over Palmer. I feel pretty good about our wide receiver situation. We could use a 5th wide receiver, but I will say there's some interesting ones a little bit later, some high upside guys. Where are you at, Abib, on this one? We're 4 picks away.
Yeah, I don't know if I would have gone Caleb, but I think I would have just waited.
And there goes Palmer.
Yeah,
Palmer's off the board here.
Yeah, I'm on an island with Trevor Lawrence. I would have definitely gone Nick Chubb here, just with this type of build. I don't mind Algier, but I kind of just want to roll the dice with JK. I mean, honestly, who knows? He's playing now. I don't know. There's always
the sources I've gotten on him are insane. Like, he looks impossibly, unbelievably good.
This is, I'd want to take that chance with JK over just.
Okay, so I'm okay with JK, and I think there's also a chance that Algier comes back around.
Yeah.
So let's put in Dobbins. He was in our queue anyway, and yeah, it's sort of like the other thing about Dobbins is I do think if I was gonna have to say who scores the most fantasy points on the Chargers this year at the running back position, it might be Gus, but I think that with J.K. Dobbins, he's going to have a stretch of games where you're actually excited about starting him.
And those are all probably before Brooks returns, before Dobbins suffers a season-ending injury.
Yeah. So let's we're good with that one. I'll also throw out the one wide receiver sort of still available in this range of the draft that nobody wants to draft. I do think, well, he just goes. I do think that Jacoby Myers, well, he's still available. I think Jacoby Myers is interesting because I think at some point we're going to see a Devontae Adams trade. I think that's, and he goes. So I think Myers is the kind of guy that's going to gain value, and I should just. It's like we're going live now, and we're just getting sniped on every guy we talk about. But we're not.
You're
live.
jinxing
we're
yourself
not.
so
we're
hard.
Not live, guys. We're not live. We are pre-recording, and we're still getting sniped.
The walls have ears.
That's right.
So I love Josh Palmer, but I like Mike Williams just as much. Rashid Shaheed is really close there for me. I think Brandon Cooks makes sense as a bet on Dak Prescott. So those are all wide receivers I like. I'm a big Tyler Conklin guy, just in this format, but I might like these wide receivers more. And we did get Hawkinson, so like I don't know that the need's as pressing.
Yeah, I am. This is kind of where I start looking at some of the handcuffs and some of the guys who also may have standalone value, especially on a kind of a build like this. So I added Ray Davis to the mix, and again, these are still very questionable. Still very, very questionable. I know Ty Johnson's been out with an injury, so I don't know. But Ray Davis has looked very, very good. So who knows what can go on with that situation. And then Bucky Irvin. We need to stop mentioning players.
Well, guys, I'll say I also added Ty Chandler into the mix. I agree that the 12th round is really like your interesting handcuffs all get swiped up here. I think Bucky Irving makes a lot of sense here at the 1207. This is a guy that is a very capable pass catcher, and we talk about any single week that Rachaad White would miss. Bucky Irving would be a guy that we'd be excited to start based on his 5 reception floor. I like Shaheed here as well. Braylon Allen's interesting. Same argument with Bucky Irving. I will say that Braylon Allen, this seems like a value. You're starting to see him steam. Bucky sometimes makes it back.
There's one guy that I would really want to grab here over a running back, and it's Jalen Polk. Only because, again, I love grabbing the running backs in this range, but they're all really the same. I mean, we can make a case, but in essence, they all need an injury. But Jalen Polk, as wide a range of outcomes as he has, one of those outcomes is he is the wide receiver 1 in that offense. And that offense has been significantly discounted. I mean, I can't remember the last time a skilled player outside of the running back position was going past the 12th round. Oh, wait, yes, I can. It was the Houston Texans last year. And I'm not saying it's the Houston Texans, but I just remember the, pounding the table like, hey, like, just draft one of them. Nico, like, just draft someone because they're not going to score 0 points. So at some point, who knows? We see Drake May, maybe Jacoby Brissett has a couple of serviceable games. Maybe it's not Jalen Polk. I just can't get with what's the other guy's name, the slot receiver that I can't.
Demario Douglas.
Demario Douglas.
I'm fine with him later round. Yeah.
But I like the idea of a Jalen Polk who may potentially have just a little bit more upside there and could be, if they had an actual wide receiver 1 that was an every week starter, he would be the one guy that I think will be able to emerge.
I think Polk could come back to us in the 13th round, though, Abib. I don't think I'm with you. Polk reminds me a little bit of Terry McLaurin rookie year, where nobody wants to draft him and he ends up being a high-end wide receiver 3, 2nd round pick, all that. But I think, like, if we game theory this, I think that Polk will be there in the 13th round. Bucky Irving and Braylon Allen will both be gone, and both of those guys are really exciting to me in this range. I put Jaleel McLaughlin in there as a 13th rounder as well. Chuba could be there in the 13th if we do go Polk. Scott, do you want to go wide receiver or running back here? I think this is a high-end running back pick, though, guys.
I want Mike Williams or Brandon Cooks, but I've gotten my way too much. I'm cool with Bucky Irving if that's what you want.
Abib, good with Bucky?
Go Brandon Cooks. Actually, you make the decision.
Bucky, I'm going Bucky.
All right.
Brandon Cooks. So Brandon Cooks, I'm going to bet you guys Brandon Cooks, Rashid Shaheed, or Jalen Polk is going to be there at the 1306.
Okay.
Yeah. Cooks, Shaheed, Mike Williams, Jalen Polk. Those are all great options. Can I just reiterate my stance on running backs? And it very well could be wrong. I'm just saying this is how I typically approach these drafts. Oh, crap. Chuba Hubbard. We forgot about him as well. But
well, no, it's okay.
I guess
we're good now. We're
insulated. Right.
We got J.K. Dobbins and Mostert. We're okay.
Yeah.
We're okay at running back.
So, but I just want to say, like, Ty Chandler, Tyler Algier, Ray Davis, Trey Benson. Probably 3 of those, like really good chance they're on waivers week 6, week 7. No, because like if they have a 20% snap share and they're not doing anything, are people churning through waivers trying to get players with more immediate upside? Or is this a league where people just hoard handcuffs all year?
I think with those rookie running backs are going to get hoarded, because I think like Trey Benson could play 0 snaps and you're still never going to cut him, because if James Conner goes down, it's wheels up. For that very reason, I threw Marshawn Lloyd. He's starting to slip in these drafts.
I like Lloyd.
I like Lloyd a ton and in like round 14. But I think we're back to the wide receiver well here, guys, in round 13. Brandon Cooks, Rashee Shaheed, Jalen Polk, Mike Williams, all 4 might be there. And I think 3 are going to be there. Abib, of those 4, who would be your preferred choice?
Polk, just because he's the only one that I could see being the wide receiver one. I'm just, Mike Williams coming back off a ACL injury, new offense. I've never really been a Mike Williams guy. Maybe Scott can sell him to me, but
I'm Polk and Shaheed over the 2 old guys, even though we have Dak.
Yeah, let me make my case for you on Mike Williams. So one, I'm a big believer in the Jets making a tremendous turnaround. Like Zach Wilson was arguably like the worst quarterback in like 30 years. Like that's how bad it was. But Aaron Rodgers won MVP in each of his last 2 healthy seasons. I know that was a few years ago, but over the last 3 years, Mike Williams averages 1.98 yards per route run. That ranks 18th. He averages 15.8 fantasy points per game over the last 3 seasons. That would have ranked that ranks 13th, just behind Mike Evans. That's in games he played at least 40% of the team snaps. I know there's injury concerns there, but I just don't think you get a player of his talent, of his upside this late in the draft where Jalen Polk was playing with the 3rd string offense last week, but I'm with you. I like Polk. It's just wide receiver 2 on the Jets, a player like Mike Williams. I don't know. I see more upside there personally. And floor, and he's gone.
And there he goes. Because you mentioned him, then you're getting overall getting bugged here.
But like we said, this was a deep tier, and that was part of our reasoning with Irving, which probably was the right call.
I'll throw.
There's another running back.
Okay, go for it, Abib. Which guy?
Tyrone Tracy.
I assumed he would fall, but he's like at the top of my list for running backs.
Yeah, I think word's been out that he's pretty healthy now. That he's not going to miss a lot of time, but that to me. Go ahead.
I think that Tracy could come back to us in the 14th, though. I don't think we need to take him in the 13th. Do you disagree?
You're probably right. I think it's definitely more likely he makes it back than Polk makes it back. So
I'll also throw out one other name, Trevor Lawrence as a QB2. That offense might bounce back in a major way. Just throwing that out there here in the 13th round is a fine value. And there he goes. So let's take Jalen Polk, guys, before I say
real quick before you do that. Brandon Cooks is 2 rounds past ADP and fits our stack.
Let me double check that. We could go Brandon Cooks. It's fine. If we take Brandon Cooks, then I want a little Jalen Tolbert super late, a double bet, because I think he could overtake him this year.
So who did you want, Abib? Shaheed?
No, let's go Brandon Cooks. I like the thought of that. I think Tyrone Tracy makes it back to us.
Okay, so we're gonna go, guys. We're gonna go Brandon Cooks for the correlation over Polk and Shaheed. He's old enough to be their father, but let's take Brandon Cooks.
I don't know. I think I like Shaheed more, but there's the stack.
Let's take Cooks. Get a little correlation. Let's bet on Cooks here, and then we're back to, we got the old guy. We drafted Brandon Cooks and drafted Raheem Mostert. I think we got the old guys out of the way. But this 14th round has got to be upside. I've thrown Polk, Shaheed, Tracy, Marshawn Lloyd all in the queue. And I'll say, guys, fail-safe Deshaun Watson is interesting to me as a QB2 with this build.
Yeah,
I could see him bounce back this year. Running back wise, nobody else really jumps out at me. Wide receiver wise, I think we got the correct players in the queue. Unless you wanted to lean a little more into the Atlanta correlation, Mooney's interesting. I also think Adonai Mitchell, guys, is interesting just because a lot of buzz about him. Tight end, really nothing stands out. So Q-wise, I think we're good.
Sorry, yeah, you bringing up Mitchell actually just makes me think about Josh Downs.
I just added him to the queue.
But I think he's, I think his injury is one that, maybe the first couple of weeks he's a bit limited, but I think he's like legit, like kind of going to be their 1B wide receiver. He just looked really, really good last year as a top option whenever or I would say top option.
He set the rookie record last year for the Colts, and he looked like in terms of early targets with the first team, he was equal to Pittman before he went down. I'm fine with that. I like both of those guys. I think Mitchell. What's interesting to me is Mitchell never played the slot at Texas, and they're using him in the slot early now, it seems. So I don't know. Adonai Mitchell's just. I mean, that guy can play.
So I was a Mitchell hater coming out. Just analytically, it was hard to make an argument for him. But you're a tape guy, which everyone who watched tape thought he was awesome. But yeah, he is the co-starter on the depth chart for wide receiver 3 alongside Alec Pierce. So maybe it might take a while for that to develop. But yeah, just Downs versus Pittman when they were both healthy, weeks 1 through 8, or even just on plays they were on the field together, it was really nothing separating Pittman from Downs, and Downs was, getting hyped up every other day before that injury. So I'm a big Downs guy as well.
I think Mitchell on the board
here, guys.
Yeah.
And Polk is still on the board. I'm cool drafting 0 quarterbacks after this. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I am too as well. I definitely don't think we need to push it. I mean, those
Deshaun's fine though. I get the upside argument with them. I think they do run a bunch more plays this year, much sick weapons. So
the thing is now we have clarity at some of the quarterback positions. There's a lot of guys that are not going to get drafted. Aaron Rodgers may not get drafted. Sam Darnold's not going to get drafted. There's a lot of guys that
we got CJ Stroud off waivers last year.
Yeah, if we need to play the matchups, we'll be able to do it. I think there's going to be guys there, but I kind of like the way we're building this team where we're just getting guys that, potentially have upside that, really fit the build. But going back to your Adonai Mitchell, in the film, just because, I'm a Longhorn, I actually thought he was a better and more complete wide receiver than Xavier Worthy, oddly enough. I know it's like, probably a hot take, but he did have kind of one of those torturous courses through his collegiate career. And I think that's probably why his numbers just don't, pan out.
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot that he offers on the field. He's just in a situation where, you're probably not going to see his full potential, at least from a fantasy standpoint.
Well, guys, we're coming back around here. Jalen Polk, Tyrone Tracy, Marshawn Lloyd, Adonai Mitchell, Josh Downs, all upside type picks. I'm going to take Watson out because you guys don't seem really that enthusiastic about him in this range. Downs also here.
I think he's a good call. I just don't think we need a second quarterback.
No, I totally get it. Which of these 5? Like, I think Polk and Mitchell. There goes Downs. Polk and Mitchell. After Polk and Mitchell go, there's not another wide receiver where I'm like, we really need to draft this guy, unless we want to go a little bit of Xavier Legette a little later, just because we have the Deontay Johnson and Jonathan Brooks exposure. And if Carolina does take that massive step forward, we would have some exposure there. Again, that's kind of unlikely. And then Ricky Pearsall late is always interesting because of the fluid situation with Ayuk. So if you want a wide receiver, Polk or Mitchell makes sense. Abib, you want to take Polk a round to go. I think you stick to your convictions and you take him here.
Yeah, I was good taking him in the 12th.
I love it.
Yeah, so I think we take Polk here. We're going to bet on a second half of the year. Polk really establishes himself. And at the end of the day, how does New England not play Polk and Baker like a ton? And Drake May and the 2 rookie wide receivers just play them. What's the point? The offense needs them. And like, why not let them have some growing pains? And let's see what we have out of these 2 wide receivers and see if they're foundational pieces, especially with Polk. Look at the guys they took Polk ahead of, and look at the guys that they sort of passed up. They could have had Ladd McConkey, could have had Keon Coleman. They were right in that range to get those guys. They take Jalen Polk. They take Jalen Polk ahead of Adonai Mitchell. So I think this team has got to see what they have in him. You have to bet on that a little bit at this point.
Week 1 starters for us: Dak, Bijan, Mostert, London, Metcalf, Pitts, Rashee Rice, Deontay Johnson, and then tremendous second half upside from Jonathan Brooks, TJ Hawkinson. Maybe J.K. Dobbins surprises us. I really like this team, guys.
I like this team a lot. We still got a little work to do.
Oh, we lost Tracy.
The dream of Tyrone Tracy is dead. But Marshawn Lloyd's still on the board in the 15th round. It would be hard to. I might just cram in that pick, guys, if Marshawn Lloyd's there in the 15th.
Yeah, that works for me.
And then just a reminder to anybody listening or watching this, we are required to draft a kicker and required to draft a defense. And then Abib, maybe you could also explain the free look, because I think at this point you're like a professor, like emeritus on free looks at this point. You guys, and a big shout out. Hopefully, you're already watching First and 15, but you can find it right here on Player Profiler YouTube. Abib is one of the co-hosts over there, and you're absolutely crushing it every single week. You guys just drafted a team last week and reviewed a main event. But talk about the free look, because you'll see in the last couple of rounds some weird names coming off the board.
Yeah. So, FFPC, I'm not sure if any other formats do it as well, but some games are played before the Sunday slate, and there are drafts that still take place after that first Thursday game. Well, this year we not only have a Thursday night game, Thursday night season opener, we also have Friday season opener. So we have 4 teams where they will play. And if you have them on your team, you've drafted them, or if you drafted early on and you add one of those players, you can move them in and out of your lineup. So let's just take an easy example. Jalen Hurts. Saquon Barkley goes off the first week. He scores 4 rushing touchdowns. Jalen Hurts scores no rushing touchdown, doesn't do much through the air. But you're like me and you drafted a second quarterback. You can take Jalen Hurts out of your starting lineup before the Sunday games start and insert whatever quarterback you would like. Okay. And same thing at any other position. So it's something that, it's kind of a fine balance. Honestly, this year, I haven't really been super aggressive about trying to draft a bunch of Philadelphia players or, Kansas City Chiefs players or, who else is it? The Ravens. But it's something that, if there's a really close, ranking for you, maybe it moves the needle. Honestly, it's one of those things where I try not to have it impact the rankings so much, but in these later rounds, it can make a difference. There are guys like blanking on the Rashad Bateman, for instance.
Yeah, Rashad Bateman in the 20th. I've gotten a couple times because of that. Just take him and see if you get a big game. And I'll say another strategy is once in a while, like these games, it doesn't really make so much sense, but you could technically double tap Green Bay and Philadelphia defense and hope for a pick 6 and then just cut one loose right after that Friday game. I'm of the opinion that the first ever NFL game in Brazil is going to be so high scoring and entertaining, and we're all going to want those guys. There goes Adonai Mitchell. We get sniped again.
No, we don't. We get our boy Marshawn Lloyd.
We get Marshawn. Okay, so we do get Marshawn. That is exciting. Let me get my board here. But still, every time we talk about a guy, guys, it's the end. Marshawn Lloyd in the 15th round. Abib, when we drafted the Hardway League against one another, I think I took Marshawn in like the 11th or 12th. So the injury discount here for sure.
It's been nice. So I added a couple guys to the queue, 7 and 8. Do not mention their names.
Oh.
Okay? Do not mention their names.
I gotta say, team number 1 had a couple of interesting picks here. Team number 1 with the 13th round, Demario Douglas, Chigakonkwo, Eric Gray, bang, 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 13th, 14th, 15th. Interesting.
Love it.
Most of the other teams pretty textbook. To recap, we only have one quarterback at this point, and we might go with a single quarterback build. Deshaun Watson in round 16, though, guys, I think he stands out if he's there.
That's fine. I will say first, apologize for talking out of both sides of my mouth, but I did add a quarterback to the queue who goes quite a bit later.
I like that one too. We could talk about him. It's Justin Fields.
Yeah. You get your answer on him week 1, ideally, right? If he's named the starter, he jumps up to QB 11 in my rankings.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with Fields. I think Fields is we could wait an extra round. If we
So
want,
I say it depends. Yeah, it depends on the value. If there's no one really screaming out to us, maybe we take Watson. But if there's someone else, we have a backup plan.
Abib, which way are you feeling with the 16th round pick structurally? And let's just quickly, once again, for our podcast listeners, recap. We don't have to go round by round. Let's go positionally. Our quarterback is Dak Prescott. Running back wise, we have Bijan Robinson, Jonathan Brooks, Raheem Mostert, J.K. Dobbins, Bucky Irving, Marshawn Lloyd. Wide receivers, we have Drake London, D.K. Metcalf, Rashee Rice, Deontay Johnson, Brandon Cooks, and Jalen Polk. And tight ends, we have Kyle Pitts and TJ Hawkinson. We are coming up on round 16, and we have to draft a kicker and a defense in this format.
Do you guys have any thoughts on drafting a defense maybe with their next pick? Just so we don't have to deal with streaming every single week.
Baltimore stands out to me as an edge type defense. It's not ideal with them against Kansas City in the first game. I've always leaned on Cincinnati and just streaming, though, because Cincinnati goes late and you get New England in week 1. You got to think there's going to be some opportunities for Cincinnati to do well in that.
Where does Philly go? Because I think they break records this year.
Philly actually goes occasionally late because people don't love the first game and the defense didn't end well, but they had a lot of youth on that defense last year. I'm with you. I don't mind Philly, but Philly.
Well, they had a lot of youth, but they had the oldest cornerback room in NFL. Then they bolstered that in the draft. 2 years ago, they set a sack record. They got Fangio.
Yeah.
So, but obviously Seattle and Cincy with those week 2 matchups. Yeah.
I think the defensive coordinator in that carousel last year was. I mean, that was just. It just looked like an absolute, shit show. Pardon my language. I did want to mention one thing as far as kind of, some of the potential picks coming up here in the 16th round. I would look at going maybe another tight end. I know it sounds weird, but Theo Johnson is a guy that I'd be considering here.
I put him in the queue. He's apparently their starter. So game over.
And he's got the best first name in the NFL. And I have so much Theo Johnson bags in Dynasty. I'm fine with Theo Johnson. Theo Johnson makes sense.
Yeah, in any other build, I'd probably be going after Zach Ertz here. I think he's a gross name because he's old and he's been injured, but he's going to find himself again in a situation where he's like, scoring. He's getting like 6 receptions for 55 yards, and he's giving you like 14 points per game, and he's going to be outscoring a lot of teams' wide receiver twos. It's going to happen until he gets hurt.
Yeah, he's going to be outscoring his own team's wide receiver too, because they don't even know who that is right now.
Well, guys, I'll say if we're on, I like Zach Ertz and I like Theo Johnson. One of those two I think will be there in the 17th round. I think that Deshaun Watson will not. That's just sort of my take on this situation. Am I reading that wrong, Abib?
Yeah, no, I don't mind that. And Deshaun Watson's one of those guys too. Like, we've all been like just, hurt the last couple of years or mortified by his play. But we're going to know within like 2 or 3 games. So he's not going to be a guy that we're just going to have to like hold on. Like if he doesn't show it in the first 2 or 3 games, we can easily drop him. So it's either that or we wait. But the thing with Fields is like, he's one of those ADPs that like he was going undrafted and he's kind of skyrocketed, meaning he's like, at times going in the 16th, 17th round. So his name is very unpredictable. So if you want to play the waiting game and take a gamble and see if he's there, you could do that. But I mean, he could literally go at the next pick. So Deshaun Watson kind of getting him here if he falls is kind of just a way to kind of lock up that QB2 if we want it. But I feel very confident with our tight end room. I love the TJ Hawkinson pick. I would, I really do want Ertz.
Well, I like Ertz as well. If you want to think about Ertz as well, Ertz is sort of a bridge to Hawkinson because I think Sinnott is going to take over at some point and Ertz will fall off much like last year. Ertz will start off well. Once they get comfortable with their second round tight end, they'll use him. And maybe Ertz gives you 6 weeks. What do we need from Hawkinson? 4 weeks, 5 weeks? So it's a bridge, but I do think one of those two guys will be there in round 17 with Juwan Johnson as another tight end option. So
agreed.
I think we take Deshaun. I think Deshaun, like, we don't have to worry about the whole Pittsburgh quarterback situation. We don't have to worry about it. And we have a player where there's going to be weeks where if it works out well with Ken Dorsey at OC, and the offense does get, more pass happy and a little more aggressive, I think we might be looking to start Deshaun certain weeks when he has good matchups. So I'm going to sort of pound the table here in round 16.
Let's do it.
Okay, let's do it. Deshaun Watson. Guys, we got a quarterback build that would have been literally impossible to do about 5 years ago. So there we go. Turn back the clock on Deshaun Watson. Yeah. And then I think we're pot committed to a tight end coming up in round 17 with Theo Johnson or Zach Ertz, unless we want to consider a defense, Abib, but it sounds like we're good on pushing it back.
Yeah, I actually like the Jets defense quite a bit. That's the one defense that I like. I'm fine like reaching on, taking them, at ADP, which is like usually back in a 14, 15
right?
round.
Yeah, they're usually one of the first. Yeah, they're one of the first defenses off the board usually. Yeah, they're absolutely loaded. It's a mob on that defense. Yeah,
and then I have a ton of Pittsburgh defense. I don't know why, but I feel like that defense, especially with getting
their defense is going to outscore their offense this year.
We can't do it though, guys. Not with this build. Not with this build. You know how odd you're going to feel week 1 with 3 Atlanta Falcons in play going up against your own defense. You're going to be the mental gymnastics you're going to be going through, rooting for sacks on Kirk Cousins at the same time as rooting for your guys to score touchdowns. It's going to be weird. So we got to punt that one. But yeah, I agree. Pittsburgh is a very exciting defense as well. Atlanta, I've taken some shots on in like they never get drafted. So like a lot of times you get Atlanta, if you get stuck. I brought up Cincinnati. They're pretty easy. When you have a ton of teams, it does get annoying churning the defenses. I agree with you guys on that.
Seattle opens against Denver and then New England. That's another one.
Yeah. And their head coach is supposed to be defensive savant. So who knows with that, maybe they can turn that around as well.
San Francisco defense, Dallas defense still available. All 3 of our tight ends are still on the board. We are 7 picks away. We are in the 17th round. I think Zach Ertz is going to be sitting there. Do we want to go with the upside of Theo Johnson, or do we want to go with what we think will be a nice floor to start the season, but probably on our bench?
I don't know. I mean, before Zach Ertz I actually don't think that Zach Ertz is getting unseated by Ben Sinnott. And I love Ben Sinnott. I really do. But I don't think he's getting unseated. I do think there's a decent chance he gets hurt. But if he manages to stay healthy all season long, I think that's just his job. And he just seems like one of those throwing away tight ends at the end of drafts that no one gives second thoughts to. But then after 2 weeks, he's in everyone's starting lineup because, again, he's just getting a lot of receptions in the tight end premium. So I like it for this build. And again, not the hugest Pitts fan. I think I love it for this build, but it's kind of like a little bit of insurance there too as well. So I still think Zach Ertz actually has more upside than Theo Johnson, because I just think with Daniel Jones, competing with Malik Neighbors, shaky offensive line, rookie tight end, there's still a lot of question marks there. He'll have his moments, but it's going to be hard to predict and trust him in our starting lineup week to week. At least I think anyway.
Let's take Zach Ertz here, and there's a chance Theo falls to round 18. Again, we've got to take our kicker. We've got to take our defense. I'll throw out Younghoe Koo if we want to go full on Atlanta. We didn't get any Kirk Cousins, but we get a little more exposure to this offense with a kicker that I think is very good with a lot of indoor games. Let's take Ertz here in round 17, though. Scott, you're good on Ertz over Theo Johnson. Okay, cool. Let's do it.
So we have 3 more picks. So really, one will be obviously a defense, one will be a kicker. So we really only have 1 more positional pick. So we're going to have to battle it out as far as who's his last pick going to be.
Well, we could also get defense out of the way. I will throw it out there just because we have the free look. Philadelphia and Kansas City defenses are appealing. Even though the matchups are very difficult. A pick 6 is a pick 6. A scoop and score is a scoop and score. Yeah. Those sort of things can happen. And we would have the ability to kind of drop our 20th round guy if we took our defense here and got it out of the way. We could also, if Theo Johnson makes it back to round 18, just take Theo Johnson, and we'd have 4 tight end build, but you'd be making a double bet on Ertz or Johnson sort of taking a step forward. I'm open here, though, Abib. I like the idea of getting the defense out of the way, but we talked about taking Theo Johnson around 16. Why not just take him,
Yeah, no. I think I'm with you on actually the defense. I think I like the idea of getting Philly's defense. I do think they have the personnel. I think with Vic Fangio back, I think they play Green Bay to start, but then they play Atlanta, New Orleans, Tampa Bay, and bye. But then they have Cleveland, the Jets. So they have a pretty nice schedule as well. And then 15, 16 they play Pitt and Washington. In week 14, they play Carolina. So there's some, games on that schedule where if, they are an aggressive defense that can, turn the ball over, I like it. And even if they don't ball out week 1, I'd be fine, like kind of, just that 1 week rostering a second quarterback. But going back to the second look, I really think we should consider Carson Steele. Who may be the actual RB2 for the Chiefs, may actually play on the third, on their third downs. He's been getting some run with the first teams, not only in, camp and practice, but also in preseason games, actually. And to me, he kind of passes the eye test a bit. And it may be a situation too, like we don't know what's going to happen that first week. It is kind of a first look. So we'll get we'll know right away if he's, active. We'll know if he's, getting run with the first team. They're playing, third down. They're playing in the hurry up. But also, like, what if he, puts up 15 points because he's the third down and hurry up back and gets 3 to 5 catches and finds his way into the end zone. So
yeah, I mean, it's a little bit like how they use Pacheco when I know it's an undrafted free agent for the 7th rounder. But Pacheco got that preseason usage. Carson Steele's also a maniac. Do you see his pet alligator? The guy has a pet alligator. Who is buying their child an alligator? And now Carson Steele's a big dude, but he's got this alligator that's 100 pounds. And I don't know. It's a very weird vibe, but it's crazy. I was on Deneric Prince for weeks and weeks.
Yeah, same.
I had Deneric Prince in like my Dynasty stashes and my Sleepers article, and now it's like I got to go back and be on Carson Steele. But I'm with you. I think it's definitely an interesting situation. I will say though, Abib, don't you think he'd come back to us on the 19th?
Oh yeah. I think at least to my knowledge, I think I'm the only one that drafted him thus far. But that's probably obviously going to change after these games coming up.
I saw it in a 350 today. So people are doing it.
Yeah, so you're the Dynasty guy. I mean, outside of just kind of seeing the camp notes and watching the preseason games, I really don't know anything about this guy.
Well, he went to Ball State.
So you must know Ball then.
Ball State.
You go to Ball State.
Yeah. I mean, listen, if you're going to Ball State, Ball's so hard at Ball State.
Yeah.
But he went to UCLA, and it's sort of like he got cast into this fullback role, and I think that's how people viewed him. But the Chiefs seem to view him as this big like quasi tailback that can use in short yardage. Now, whether he ends up being a long-time fullback, any way you cut it, like he's big and athletic and he runs the ball well. So I don't know. Andy Reid is weird. Like Isaiah Pacheco, a couple people were. There's some people that liked him. JJ Zacharias, and obviously a bunch of people were on Isaiah Pacheco, but he still was a 7th round pick. With Steele, it's an undrafted free agent. So I don't know. Stranger things have happened in the NFL. Philadelphia defense, KC just went. So our free look defense opportunity. Let's do it, guys.
Eagles.
Yep.
Yeah.
Philly D.
Let's do it.
Okay, so we lock them in. So 2 picks left. We have to get a kicker and we have to get a positional player. 19th round, we have Carson Steele, Theo Johnson, Juwan Johnson in our queue, or we could take kicker here and get it out of the way. But it sounds like you want Carson Steele, Abib. I just wanted to
bring it. I actually want to kind of get you guys' thoughts on that situation too, as well. Maybe it's sort of kind of fool's gold. I also threw in Cam Akers, who to me looks really, really good coming off of that ACL. I've never been a huge kind of just like I watch Joe Mixon and just think wow, but Cam Akers may shock a lot of people this year. So that's a guy that like I think is for sure going to make the team, and he just looks better than Dameon Pierce right now to me. He's got a, I don't necessarily know that the ladder is too high to climb for him as well.
Yeah, I mean, again, we're splitting hairs here because most of the times this is going to be a guy that we're sending back to the waiver wire. It actually can be a problem if our 19th and 20th round pick are really good, because Abib, you've had these situations where you draft so many good players on your bench and you can't churn the waiver wire properly.
Yeah,
I've had that like kind of catch me. So I'd rather I like your idea of swinging on Steele because you'll know in like 2 seconds. Akers seems like a guy where you might have to just hold him. And you might end up cutting him without even seeing anything.
So I think no matter what, whoever we're taking is someone we're probably dropping because there's now like a more exciting name in week 1.
Yeah.
So to me, I lean more towards Theo. Just look at Darren Waller's usage last year with like a bum hamstring. Maybe that's sort of what they were hoping or envisioning with Theo Johnson, who's like a freak athlete. With Carson Steele, I mean, it could be Prince, it could be CEH, it could be none of the above.
Free look though. We have to factor in the free look.
Okay, you're right.
So the free look though,
okay.
Carson Steele, this could be like Carson Steele falls in the end zone and has 14 points, and we're like talking to one another about, do we keep him in the lineup? Probably do. So
Theo hasn't been falling to the 19th though. So I mean, that is value there. So I think, at this stage when you're kind of, grasping at straws, just take the guy who falls past ADP and who's the value.
So the only problem is though, Abib, everybody's going to know to take Carson Steele now because Abib Agbetoba talked about him so loosely on 1st and 15 and now press coverage. So let's take Theo Johnson if he's there. If he's gone, let's take Carson Steele and we'll take our kicker in the 20th. Does this sound good, guys?
Perfect.
I have a favorite kicker who I'm hoping falls to us.
Well, which guy is it?
Jake Bates, the UFL guy, the UFL superstar who Detroit Lions, great offense, scores a lot of points. They do go for it on 4th a bit too much, but still.
Let's do it.
They go for it a lot on 4th, but I bet Dan Campbell's going to want to try like a 65-yard kick at some point.
Man, I don't know. They go for it a lot.
Right.
But they do play in the dome. I really like kind of playing on, the idea of the Jets, coming back, and I've been drafting a lot of Greg the Leg this year, a ton of Greg the Leg, because he pretty much does not get drafted, and he seems very accurate.
Gregatron,
he can kick distance. Doesn't matter if he's outdoors or not, and it's an offense that again should be a little bit better. So he's cheap too as well.
Okay, so I'm going to put in Theo Johnson, guys, here at the 1906.
All right, Greg Zierlein's, yeah, please.
Okay.
Great pick. Greg Zierlein's longest kick, 61 yards. Jake Bates hit a 64-yarder to win it.
Can't argue that.
All right, we could take Greg the Leg.
Honestly, that doesn't matter. I'm assuming the
kickers,
the first look guys already went.
Oh yeah, I mean,
wait, did Team 3 really take 3 kickers?
What?
team. I can understand. No, I really can't. They took all three free look kickers. If we want to try to make an argument for them.
Yeah, they really went after it, and they took Rashad Bateman. So they were really going. So this is actually a good example. Like, this is, to me, like, if I would have given this example, people would say, oh, no one ever does that. Well, this is this is what you don't want to do with the free look, at least in my opinion, where you overvalue that, because you not only did you take 3 kickers, you took them, starting in round 14. You took Rashad Bateman. You took Isaiah Likely in the 12th round. I thought that was a little bit early. I wasn't, really kind of going with that. And this is also the guy that took Patrick Mahomes and Jordan Love. So he really went after that first look. Those are all first look players, and just really past ADP. That is very, very, interesting. I never want to say anybody has a bad draft because, who knows? This may be the Millie winner, but
what it reminds me of is like, in basketball, you have all these guys who just have 0 player takes, which, you're ceding a tremendous edge. Like, I don't even know why you're drafting if that's the case, but they just kind of draft players by ADP, but they like perfectly stack and try and hammer all these micro edges. And so maybe it's just like a guy who like doesn't really know anyone after round 12. And so that's what he's doing. I don't know. And there is value to like having the best kicker every year, and so maybe that maximizes. I have no idea.
No, it's not. The good thing for us guys is you're going to end up with Harrison Butker or Justin Tucker cut.
Yeah.
And we're going to be able to play the waiver
Dude,
wire.
we should spend serious fab on that.
If we get Justin Tucker, I'm all about it. Or Butker. I think both
No
those guys are
kidding.
going to be. Yeah. So we'll
Unless
love
Jake
access
Bates
to that.
outscores them all.
Well, Jake Bates to the moon. This is the Dallas Cowboys model of finding a kicker, and it's going to strike twice.
I really do want a good kicker because as just as tough as hard as it is to like get through all waiver wires, I also stream kickers in certain leagues where I don't have a guy who's elite because every point matters. When you miss out on a playoff or that number 1 seed by 2 points, it changes you. So yeah, let's get a good kicker so I don't have to like go through the pain of streaming kickers.
Yeah, it's a painful existence. And when you have a lot of teams and you're doing the waivers for 1 million of them and you have to stream defense and kicker, it's truly painful. There's also an argument to take a kicker with a late bye so you don't have to worry about it as well. Another position to kind of check there.
Yeah.
All right, so we're almost at the end here. We can start out with a review. Abib, your thoughts on this team? What concerns, picks you would have maybe changed?
Yeah, no, I love this build. Drake London is just gonna, we're all kind of just having faith that he's gonna be able to, pay off his ADP. I'd love for him to be, finish as a top 5 wide receiver, but we just need him to be a top 12 wide receiver. Okay. And we bought into this offense. We bought into the bringing over the Sean McVay, offense. And so I love that start. And this is my first Pitts team, and he doesn't fall to the force rarely at this position. So I actually have no issues with that. I'm actually, big on DK. So I love that we were able to get him the 4th. To me, it's a clear tier break for the guys going after. And then the Rashee Rice, because I don't have a lot of Rashee Rice, especially in main event. He's been really getting steamed up. So it really just fell to us. And then like the Deontay pick, was kind of the icing on the cake. And everything else just really fell into place. I think we were really able to achieve.
Hold on. I got to interrupt you because both of our kickers were selected.
Jake Bates is still there.
Jake Bates is still there. Okay, I'm taking it.
Jake Bates was a horrible call by me. Detroit only had 21 field goals. Greg Zierlein had like 50 last
He's gone.
year.
Greg the leg is gone. Do we want to take Jake
Dustin,
Bates? We have or we can go with
Dustin
Matt Gay, Dustin Hopkins. Okay, so let's go Dustin Hopkins.
Yeah, before getting injured, I think he was actually kicking quite a few field goals.
Okay, so final answer, Dustin Hopkins.
Yeah.
Okay, taking him. Okay, go ahead, Abib.
Yeah, no, I was just saying. I absolutely love the build, and I love the balance between the youth on our team. Like we just hammered youth early on, and then we have some. I don't want to use the term floor because I still feel like these guys have some upside. And credit to Scott because I was kind of thinking the same thing you were on TJ Hawkinson, but wasn't putting it into action. And you can think something, but when you're not putting it into action, especially if you're drafting, volume drafting, then you might as well not even think about it. It's almost just irrelevant at that point. So ever since you sort of kind of started talking about the idea of TJ Hawkinson being this potential steal, it's just made a lot of sense, and it's been a guy that I've really been going after in drafts. So glad we were able to get that.
Yeah, and I think that like the Brooks and Hawkinson values could push us over the top. We need to get off to a good start. You don't want to be like 1-3 and have those guys as saviors. Mm-hmm. But I think with this build, that's not going to be us. And I think once we get those two guys, I think the build is going to look really good. We don't have a ton of running backs, but the Jonathan Brooks and Raheem Mostert combination I love. And then I really like what we did with Bucky Irving and Marshawn Lloyd. 2 high-end contingent upside plays, and I think both would catch passes. If there was an injury to Josh Jacobs or an injury to Rashad White, both those guys I think would be huge for us. J.K. Dobbins is a wild card, but I think any week that he's starting for the Chargers, we're going to be excited about it. I think it's sort of an all-or-nothing bet with him. I don't know how long he'll hold up, but I do think we'll get some usable weeks out of him. And I like what we did late with Zach Ertz and Theo Johnson. I think one of those two guys is going to be in certain FFPC leagues where available would be a guy that would be a big waiver wire addition. So I like this team. This team is unique, and this team is has a good structure to it. So I'm happy with the way it turned out. Scott, your thoughts?
Yeah, me too. I mean, I made the outline at every single pick we made where, I loved just about all these picks. I think we had a really nice draft. What I like to do is like first envision a scenario where this wins us $1 million. How does that happen? But what I also like to do is a pre-mortem, is like, let's say this dies. This is a bad team. Assume 0 injuries. What happened? What went wrong? And I'd have to say, scroll all the way to the top. It would be something like Atlanta underwhelms. They win with their defense and Bijan on the ground, I guess. Kirk Cousins isn't all the way back. Maybe JSN is a little better than DK, or Xavier Worthy blows up. And then Brooks, I think a lot hinges on Brooks. Like, what if Chuba Hubbard does really well, and it's just a committee from there on out throughout the second half? Those would be all my concerns. But like the upside case for it, how it wins $1 million is just, Atlanta takes the step forward that we expect them to take. Jonathan Brooks, is the guy they drafted him to be. TJ Hawkinson turns out to be like a valuable flex player for us in the second half. Looking at this, you go with the worst case scenario, you go with the best case scenario, and the most likely scenario. And truth be told, I feel good about all 3 potential scenarios.
Yeah, and I'll just throw it out there. If anybody in the Atlanta area knows Zach Robinson, you could tell him that if we win $1 million, we're getting the guy a Rolex or something really nice. I'm sure a cash payment is probably not allowed, but I think we get away with getting him a watch or something.
So I actually do kind of know Zach Robinson. We worked together back at PFF. Everyone I talk to is like, the dude's a genius. He's the man. I have a friend who talks to him on the phone. What was it, a few years ago? I was like, hey, can you do me a favor? Can you call Zach Robinson and can you ask him about Tyler Higbee? Higbee had just the final 4 weeks of the season hit 100 yards in each game. And he was like, he called him, he talked, he BS'd. And he said Tyler Higbee's going to go off this year. He's a main focal point of the offense. And then Higbee sucked, but it's the best source you could have got. And it's that's why I still Schefter's wrong a lot. Ian Rappaport's wrong a lot.
Yeah.
Love
but
it.
Yeah, I was all in on Higbee. And so that didn't work out for me that year.
Well, that's a nice flex though, Scott, as well. I love that we can get it in the ear of the offensive coordinators. Abib, let everybody know what you have going on over the next few weeks.
Yeah. So we are over at First and 15, part of the Player Profiler Network as well. And we will be podcasting on a weekly basis. I think we may be having another listener league coming up. I may be live streaming another main event, likely one at 7:00 on a Sunday, judging based on this. I had the pleasure also being on the Fantasy Point podcast recently with Scott Barrett. So please check that out. That's always a great time. It's kind of confirming priors and just kind of coming on to guys that maybe I had a blind spot to, and just love to talk and shop. You can also find me on Twitter. It's Skywalker2000 as well. Skywalker with an A, not an ER, not a Star Wars reference. This was fun. We got to do more of these.
Yeah, we got to get another one in before the season. Scott, let everybody know what you have going on at Fantasy Points.
Yeah, check out my draft plan. Just read this one article, dominate all of your leagues. Simple as that. We also we're Fantasy Points Data. I think it's the best football analytics product on the market. Crazy tools, crazy filter options. We're launching average separation score and route win rate, all players at all positions, all games, all routes. We think that's going to be really cool. So be on the lookout for that. And yeah, we should definitely do this again because this went so swimmingly well. I would just love if FFPC had a feature where if we landed the 112, we could just pay a $50 fee to just bail on that league. Because I do not, this would have been so much less fun if we were drafting out of the 112.
Yeah, so we talked about that in the pre-chat a little bit about how 112 you got to get unique. I will say that what Team 12 did with Laporte and McBride. You're starting to see that over and over again. It's tough though these days, guys, with the guys being banged up, and with AJ Brown and Garrett Wilson always going now inside of the top 10, 11. It'll be interesting. So we're going to hope for no injuries next few weeks. We're almost at NFL season. Stick with us here at Press Coverage when we drop in shows like this, right up until opening kickoff. We'll see you soon.
Hey, I want to thank you for being part of this broadcast. If you have any thoughts on it, leave a comment. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a like. And if you want to see more shows on the Player Profiler channel, subscribe to it. That's how we know you want more.